This is a Hot Pie Original.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Inhumane podcast, a Hot Pie Media original. And you are here for part 2 with Felicia Grantham. If you have not listened to part 1, I recommend you go back and listen to her because she has so much information on how you can stop human trafficking. We get asked this question over and over again, and she has created literally a task force with no budget, no help, no anything. So this is how you can get started. So listen to part 1 if you haven't done so already, but join me for part 2. Because you're the coordinator for this task force. And so what are some of the obstacles in coordinating this task force, whether it be your monthly meeting or anything else that you
do? Public speaking? Just kidding.
But you've already shared that one with me.
I would say...
And you're still here, see?
I'm still here.
You're still here. You know the need.
No, I would say probably the most challenging thing with the task force is the turnover of people.
Okay.
So here in Tarrant County and with the task force, we have some of the most amazing volunteers you will ever find.
Mm-hmm.
But they're volunteers. They don't get paid. And, they invest their time and their energy and effort and resources into making this work. But they have jobs.
Sure.
And they have families. Mm-hmm. And so sometimes, because of other obligations, they need to step down from a leadership role and attend to other things. But that always means, we have to bring on somebody new, and then we have to get them up to speed. And what is trafficking and what is the task force doing? And so there's always this, transition period. And so, with volunteers, I think you get more turnover than you do if you were using paid positions.
Sure.
But I have to say, every time we've lost a great person, we've gained a great person. So we've just been really blessed here as part of the task force.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Yeah, no, that's fair. And that's because you're in a public service role and volunteers in that space. And so it's kind of similar to nonprofits. And yeah, turnover with volunteers is huge. And you're just like, oh, we got to redo. But that's great that you're getting, like you said, one great person leaves and it's replaced with another great person to continue the fight. Right. So now what is, I guess, one of the important, I asked you, what are your goals of the task force, but like monthly, so what do you do monthly? How about we actually tell our listeners, what do you do monthly in the task force?
So every month, when we come together, we usually start with me doing a little introduction. And I try to get people, while we're virtual, to network, which is really hard because it's really easy when you're in person. You can hand out business cards and shake hands and all of that. But when you're virtual, it's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah.
So what we've discovered is there's usually a chat log. Mm-hmm. And so we use the chat and we have everybody introduce themselves and not just say, hey, my name is so-and-so, but this is the organization I'm with and this is my contact information. And if people want to volunteer, we have them, mention that they want to volunteer. If they're looking for volunteers, we have them mention that so that everybody after the meeting, they get a copy of this chat log and they can go back through it and they can say, oh, I'm looking for volunteers. And here's 3 people that said they wanted to volunteer. So maybe I can connect with them. So we do a little bit of networking. Mm-hmm. And then we hear from our law enforcement partners. And right now we're hearing from Fort Worth Police Department and the Tarrant County Sheriff's Office. And they each give sort of an overview of what they've been doing for the past month. So they talk about their cases. Mm-hmm. They talk about upcoming operations that they're doing and just giving people that insight into sort of that viewpoint of things and some of the challenges, that they face. And after that, then we usually have a presentation. And so we'll try to bring somebody in who can talk about some aspect of human trafficking to educate people on just one more piece of the puzzle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love the speakers that you have come on board each month. They are, they're pretty much all local. They're all local, right? I'm trying to think of
most of them have been
for most of them, right? Yeah. So, so they're all local speakers, people that are in the fight. And like, I love how you said they're all a piece of the puzzle, right? And that's the thing, is the more educated and that the volunteer, the community becomes about human trafficking, they'll see, oh my gosh, there was this part that we didn't think of. Oh, there's this need, right, that we need to put into the fold. There's this. And so all of these people make up a piece of the puzzle. Granted, we may need 10 of that one piece, right? We may need 20 of this one piece, and one, like you can never have enough of the same. And so Felicia, like the speakers that you have on there, you can tell like they're just so fired up themselves, and you see the work that they're doing. I think that's really the beauty of it. And that's probably why you are getting so much attention, like even internationally, and people that are not in Tarrant County area or Texas alone. But because this is a duplicatable process. And when you see that these organizations, these are community people, and the work that they're doing, they're showing that to the audience, to the participants of that particular, monthly meeting. And you're just like, oh my gosh, I could do that. And that's one of the reasons I told you, like, I wanted to have you, on our show is I know me coming from, like as a chief learning officer myself, I'm all about doing things that is duplicatable, like a plug and play for people. Like at least this part is easy because this work is going to be really hard. So let's give them this that, like I said, they could just duplicate and don't have to start from scratch. And being part of your meetings, you're able to see the needs and what you're doing about it. And I just really, really, like I said, love that. And you have some really great speakers. They're so fired up and they're doing great work. They're doing really, really great work. So you've coordinated all of this. So what is like a goal for like the month? Like each time you're going to have a meeting, what's the goal?
Yeah. So we try to focus on a different piece of human trafficking each month. And I mean, our goal is it's a mixture of getting people to collaborate and to network and then to educate them. Because the more people are educated, the better they'll be able to spot human trafficking and then be able to report it from there. So that's really our goal with each meeting.
Gotcha. Yeah. And well, I mean, y'all nail it each time. Like you said, it may be a little challenging to get people to network via chat, right? But I know I've reached out to a couple of people based off of whatever they wrote. And, and it is each time. And I think that's the other thing for people to understand. Human trafficking is such a move. It's always evolving. And as soon as we think we get a handle on this, those predators, and especially those that are in these organized crime, I mean, they pivot and then they pivot and they pivot as soon as we start getting even more traction, right? So being a part of these groups are so essential because they're constantly changing the game. And we have to be on top of that as much as we possibly can. So you're always learning something, even if it's, like I said, even if it's one minute thing, like, oh, I didn't know that, or, oh, it shifted, we shifted gears. So, so you're absolutely right. Like, I think everyone just learns, at least speaking for myself, each time I'm always blown away of what I learn. And that's because, and then I'm able to share some of those things, like when Interpol has something, when the United Nations has something, when something in Australia, like I said, I'm on all these time zones, and I'll say, oh, well, in Texas or in Tarrant County or in, or here in the US or what have you, because we're taking all of this piece of information, and you cannot be, you can't get enough education in this field if we want to stop human trafficking, right?
Agree.
Yeah. And to prevent it, it's just not enough, at all. So what are some ways that you think the community, doesn't matter what neighborhood, region of the United States or part of the world, what are some ways that you think a community can get into the fight of fighting human trafficking?
So I think it goes back to what we were just talking about. The very first thing that people can do is educate themselves. You need to understand what human trafficking is in order to be able to spot it and report it. Mm-hmm. And there's nuances to human trafficking. It's not smuggling. It's different than smuggling.
Yeah.
But a lot of people get those confused. But it's different than domestic violence. There's a lot of crossover and similarities, but it's still different. So it's good to learn what it is and what makes it different from the other crimes out there. And then, there's lots of practical ways that people can get involved beyond that. And it could be anything from, making a donation to an organization that's doing anti-trafficking efforts, to writing support letters to victims that are becoming survivors, to, starting a coalition or a task force in their area. It really just depends on, what the person feels called to do and how much time and energy they have to put towards the effort. But I mean, you could do even speaker sessions where you get speakers together and do an educational presentation for the community. Right. There's so many different ways that people can get involved.
Yeah, I love that. I love, and I appreciate you sharing that so much. When somebody wants to start a task force, what do you think are the first couple of things that they need to do in their, again, any place in the world? What do you think they need to do to start a task force? They look online, they see their police force, maybe locally, state doesn't really have much, or it's at least it not shared. So what do you think that they should do?
So I'm going to steal something from Jim Collins' book, Good to Great. But I really believe it's all about getting the right people on the bus. And I think if you want to start a successful coalition or task force, you need to have the right people working on it. And if you find the right people, you'll have people that have the passion and the energy and the time to commit to making it successful. Yeah. So it really is. It's about finding the right people and getting them to be part of your task force. And like with the Tarrant County 5 Stones, we've got a steering committee of some amazing people. And they determine the direction of the task force. And I could never do it without them. So it's, you get the right people and they make it happen.
Yeah, that's perfect, actually, because this, if anyone's listening, they're really wanting to start a task force. I mean, usually I hear, well, my area doesn't have the budget, right? Or my area doesn't have this, or they don't have that. Felicia started out with y'all didn't even have a designated human trafficking investigator, right? It was a shared Tarrant County. Yeah.
We had no human trafficking unit at the time. We had one detective, but not a unit. Right. And when we started the task force, we didn't have a budget. I was granted to be able to do it while I was a city employee. So I have my salary, but I didn't have any budget for the actual task force. Yeah. So it's all about people being passionate and committing their time and their energy to it. And when you get everybody to see the same vision,
Right.
then they'll work towards that vision together, and they'll bring their resources and they'll bring their time and their energy, and they'll make it happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. See, and that's why I wanted to bring that part up, right? About the budget and how y'all started with nothing, because people already start with their obstacles, right? Before they even begin. And the whole point of the Inhumane podcast is to give people these small little action tools that they can actually complete, right? For a variety of reasons. One, because we want people to get started in such a horrible, crimes against humanity space, which is already scary for people. And secondly, so that it prevents burnout. And they need that support of people, as you and I know. And so each time I want to give them something like, here's just one seed. And if you start planting that one seed, you don't have to start with anything with the exception of start talking, bringing people together. And then you'll find, like you said, the right people on the bus. And when that happens, you're all able to do what best fits in your skill set in your life. And that's when it starts growing. And that commitment and consistency with just people getting together and collaborating, that starts gaining the attention of other people where they're like, okay, maybe now we need a budget. Okay, maybe now we need an investigator, right? And so on and so on. And it's a trickle down effect or like a domino effect. But you got to start somewhere. And that is beautifully well said. And I thank you so much for saying you just need the right people on the bus, because you do. You can't, as one person, you and I know you are going to struggle, because this is a fierce area. And it's so nasty and it's so horrible. But they need us. And if you have a passion for it, then let's keep going. But you can't do it by yourself. We want everyone to be in it for the long haul, right? For the long haul. So you couldn't have said it better. And I appreciate that so much. So then lastly, what are for our listeners, some great trainings or resources that you recommend for the community to just, start paying attention to so that they can stop human trafficking or learn about human trafficking?
So I would suggest there's a book called Surviving to Life by Julia Walsh. And she was actually a survivor of human trafficking. Yeah. So she describes the abuse and how she got free from it, and then sort of the restoration process, and now how she's giving back. And so it's really kind of a great overview of, the whole process of human trafficking and how somebody kind of goes through that and comes out on the other side. And so I would definitely recommend that. And then there's also, for those that want to do a training, there is a free online training called On Watch. And you can find it by Googling On Watch training. But it's a series of different lessons, and it basically takes you through Trafficking 101. Yeah. And then lastly, I guess I would just say, we've talked a little bit about how to create a task force. And if anybody's interested, I sort of pulled together some ideas of what it took to start Tarrant County Five Stones and made a document about that. So if anybody wants that, that's available as well.
Oh, that's awesome. How you want them to just email you, or do you want them to contact our show and then we can send them to your direction? What would you like?
Either's fine. They can email me. That's fine.
Okay. We could put that up.
It's okay.
Just because I know your last name, just like my last name, and my first name, it confuses people. They're like, what is that email? Yeah. Right? Like, what is that email? So we'll definitely put that out there. I think we have the
longest email they could come up with.
Seriously, all day long, right? No, I think that's fantastic that you created that document, because that's exactly what I think. Like I said, I know people are like, I want to do something and I'm good at this and I'd love to get my community involved. How can I, right? It's just that they're just like, they just need that little tiny push, more like a and that's it. They're ready to roll. They just need that one little push. So I appreciate that so much. And I can't thank you enough for coming on this show because, like I said over and over, and I can't say it enough, y'all started with nothing practically. And it has grown to one of the best task force I've seen because y'all have a plethora of people from all different walks of life, all different kinds of organizations on what they're focused on and what they're doing, all have great talents, all were just living their own life. And this passion just kind of jumped up at them. And they're consistent. And y'all have just created such a great thing that can be duplicated in any part of the world. And I really hope that more people reach out to y'all and join the party, because it's kind of like a party when I go to the Tarrant County 5-Stone meetings monthly. It's like, it's kind of like a party. You're just like, ooh, I'm going to see some of the same people or hear from the same people. Like you're expecting some of that as well as some new people. And I'm like, ooh, what am I going to learn today? Like I'm always excited to hop on board. So yeah, it's a great party because we're all here to kind of fight the fight. So I thank you again, Felicia. And is there anything else that you have to share before we let you go?
No, I appreciate the opportunity to be on the podcast and to talk about this. And I encourage anybody who is, kind of questioning whether they can do anything or not. You definitely can do something. And even if it's just getting yourself educated, that's a huge step. And if you want to take it a step further and create a coalition in your area, then that's amazing. And we could definitely use that too. But yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. And I do look forward. I already put some notes in on where I'm going to pull you in and beg you and ask you to come on once again, because you just have such great knowledge. And I'm so grateful. And thank you for all the work that you are doing. Tarrant County is rocking and rolling. So thanks so much, Felicia. So I hope you had a really great time listening to me and Felicia chit chat. And if you are wanting to get started, if you are wanting to stop human trafficking in your community, we have a call to action. And the first step before anything else is to figure out who are going to be the people on your bus. They don't have to be people that you know right now that you're BFFs with, right? These can be people in the community where you can approach them and say, hey, I am wanting to do this human trafficking task force, this anti-human trafficking task force or coalition or speaker series or whatever the case may be, whatever is in your heart, and say, I would really like you to join me because of ABCD that I've seen on your LinkedIn, or I've heard you, or this is what you do in our community. I think you'd be great at this. Start thinking of those people, because as Felicia and I stated, when you are the Lone Ranger, not only is it very lonely, but burnt out happens, and we want people to be prepared for the long haul, because that's what we need. So think about, start making that list, even if it's the most outlandish, thought, where maybe it's this super famous person, or it's a politician, or it's a great business person. Even if it's something like that, put it on your list and then start going through it. And then start reaching out to those individuals and tell them about what you plan on doing. So let's start with that, because we want you supported. Contact me. I'd love for you to contact us on Inhumane, the Inhumane podcast across all social media platforms. And I'd be happy to run through the list with you. Or if I can make a connection with anybody that you're thinking as well, love to help, because we're just so excited that you want to be part of this fight. So get that list going. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening. You can find more episodes and all other Hot Pie Media originals baked fresh daily at our home on the web at hotpiemedia.com, the Hot Pie Media YouTube channel, or wherever you listen to podcasts.